Good afternoon. This is Spirit Journey. Boy, it's in the afternoon, and I already put up some videos, but I didn't realize when I got up this morning what day it was. It is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. I didn't go out today. I stayed in, and I was going to go out, and my ear actually is bothering me. I have an earache, and I mentioned that in a video, and I treated it with some essential oils, and it's very painful. But when I was going to go to get it looked at with the doctor, and my eyes glanced on my calendar, and I saw it's the holiday. And I said, oh, the place will be closed. It'll be like a skeletal crew. And I don't like going to a medical facility like on a weekend or something like that when there's a holiday crew or what they call weekend crew or, you know. So I said, if it continues, then I'll just go tomorrow. But either way, I see that it's King's birthday, and wow, what a day! Here it's actually the sky looks very beautiful. I'm just looking at the sky right now and doing a lot of thinking. It's been, what's that, about 50 years? Yeah, about 50 years of his assassination, or 51 years. I forget. Yeah, I think this year would be the 50th anniversary of his assassination. And so I want to say up front, to the families and friends of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I wish them comfort on this day, because the pain of someone that you love leaving you, especially under his, what happened to him, you'll never, outgrow the pain of that all. So what I want to talk about today, it'll be just general conversation. What I want to talk about, let's see. Well, the other night I did post a video regarding the H&M hoodie ad that was placed by them in that it was a hoodie, and on the hoodie had something that could be read as very pejorative. And I think the H&M thought they were being cute when they wrote that. And I start to wonder where their intelligence were at the time. But either way, here you have it's 2018, and you have a manufacturer, a company that makes clothing, and they're known for they're very hip, and the clothes are relatively inexpensive. And what would make a company do something like that? Or let's say they didn't make it, but let's say they got a vendor who made it and they sold it to H&M to sell for them. But still, you gotta really look and know your market and where you're marketing this to. Just what I mentioned in my video. At some point, their common sense and their tact flew out the window. And then again, I mentioned about the parent of the child who allowed the child to model this hoodie that has this comment on it. And I'm wondering again where that sense and what people will think when they put clothes on their children. And again, it's in a different culture from where I'm coming from. I was born and raised in New York City, and people have different think certain things are more appropriate than others, or some things it's not good. And then again, some people, no matter how crude something is, whether it's clothing or let's say participating in movies or certain music that's pejorative in nature, it doesn't edify the group that you belong to. Why do we do what we do? What do we get out of it? And again, I mentioned that, self-hate, or you're desperate for money. And it's a point where you have to really ask yourself, what are you willing to, how much are you willing to compromise to keep your head up? And I see in this instance with the child with the hoodie that it was all fair game. They just put it out there. I think, we have to look at what we do and how it may affect others, especially if it's a statement. That's why, growing up, I never wore a t-shirt that had writing on it. Never. I may have had maybe one, like I know one t-shirt that had a picture on it. But outside of that, everything is just, no advertisement. And I remember growing up in elementary school, you'd be surprised at things that young kids have on their t-shirts. And I'm wondering, did the parents see what they were wearing? But again, this is a little 2-year-old child. So what the child has on, the parent or the caretaker or relative put that on the child. I've never been to South Africa. And again, I would figure all what happened in South Africa for all these years, again, it was controlled by the Dutch. They're also known as the Boers or Afrikaners. And then you also have the British, who have a very, very strong control over that country. And both are, for some reason, heavily into the ideology of what they call race and who's superior, who's inferior. Even amongst, if you go to Britain, their culture is saturated with hierarchy. And they even have an expression, commoners and the working class. Now, I thought everyone has to do some type of work, whether you work for yourself or work for someone else. But so you have a mindset of individuals who are in power, who have this preoccupation of superiority and who is to be subjugated. Why can't we all just live in harmony? And then again, I did another video regarding about the book of Revelation, chapter 12, about the war in heaven. I watched this fantastic video that the Farsight Institute had put, for sale online for, pay for view. And they talk about when they did a remote viewing session regarding that chapter verse of the book of Revelation about the war in heaven, about you had interstellar wars with one planet against the other. And there is a belief that you had beings from other worlds who came to Earth and mated with the women on this planet. And when that occurred, offsprings were born to them, and they were supposed to be like giants. And the royal families of Europe in particular, supposed to be the bloodline of the descendants of these people from other planets who mated with humans. And they're supposed to maybe even have special abilities, or they're very tall. So I'm wondering whether, like with Britain, and Holland also has royal families there too. Again, all the European royalties are related. So I guess what happens in one domain happens in the others, in their mindset and their interest of control. And so I think about, with this, what does it mean to be on this planet? Growing up and living in a place like the United States of America, I'm always surrounded by the concept of race, even as a young child, but it wasn't something that was, in my earliest days, something that was really discussed. I was naive about a lot of that. Again, I was born and raised in the North and not in the South. So people in the South would definitely have a different mindset of someone versus someone who's born and raised in the North and whose ancestry is not from the South, such as myself. So, but I live amongst people whose background is from the South, and they may have a different outlook or attitude about life in comparison to myself. Even though now I'm living up north and there is racism that happens in New York, especially when I was a youngster. When I became of age, like 18 years of age, and I started to experience these things that I didn't understand. I didn't understand racism because I went to high schools that had people of virtually every race and nationality. And we basically all got along. But I did mention in past videos that there were some isms that happened in the school, and some of the black women in particular, not the black men, but the black women whose background is from the South, American South, that they didn't like the way that I spoke. And I used to be teased by them. And I guess they didn't understand. Well, they felt the way I talk was too Caucasian for them. But either way, how one speaks, you're in charge of your own vocal cords. And so I feel that their attention was misdirected, and that they shouldn't be preoccupied with the way that I speak. Just like if I would have pointed out the way they spoke, I know they would not like it, right? But I was respectful enough to not say anything about them. I don't believe in making fun of people the way they look or talk, and especially when I was often a target about the way I spoke and my looks. So it's really something. You have a demographics who had horrific things happen to them, who lived in the South, or who face things like incest and physical abuse. When I talk to other American blacks, it seems to always be an issue, especially when poverty is there in addition. And so they should have been more preoccupied of how to elevate their communities, not try to pull down someone who speaks a style of English that they feel that belongs to white people. I feel communication is communication. So long that you understand what I'm saying, that you understand my point, what I'm getting at, it's about communication. But I see that with language, that language communicates many things. And in this case, language had to do with one's social status. And the social status, by implication, was different and maybe so-called better than theirs or higher than theirs. And that's what they really resented, I think, in hindsight. There are many people with many accents in New York City, but why do they target me? So they really are attacking themselves. They don't see, they could also speak the way I do. You know, the reason why I talk the way I do, I sound like my family. My family went to school, and they, back then in those days, the schools were very strict. My mother went to parochial school. She's Catholic, and you had to talk, and you know, you had to speak the way that the nun spoke. So I would say that that's a big contribution to it. But anyone can go to school if you feel a particular way of talking is considered better. Shouldn't these students, fellow students, the parents of those students, have taught them or bring them to parochial school or have the take speech lessons? Yeah, in school back then we had what was called speech lessons, and I remember I had to attend some sessions there. Yep, I had to go. So either way, this video is not so much about that. I'm just really freestyling this, just talking out of the cuff. But again, it is King's birthday. And I start to wonder what would he be thinking these days? Let's say he's looking from heaven and he's watching the people in America or all around the world and the condition. What would he say to his fellow black man or black woman? What would he say about the black family? Would he be in approval or not? What would he say about some of the people, how they wear their clothes? See, I remember us, American blacks, being very conservative in dress and speech. Most of my American black friends, they went to church. Yeah. But now I have no idea whether, you have people who still go to church, but the percentage of us who go to church now. King, what would he say, King? And I ask myself those questions. I think it's a very provocative question. I also remember when I was in junior high school, it was just a couple of years after King's assassination. And again, at that time of my life, it might have been 4 or 5 years. Let me see. Oh, I'm trying to remember now. Let's see. He was about 5 when he got assassinated. 5. So it might have been 8 years. And at that time, I was 12 years old at least when this particular thing happened in junior high school. And it was Martin Luther King's birthday. And I had a student, a fellow student. And again, back then, race and holidays and things like that, my family doesn't practice anything like that, I mean, yes, we get a Christmas tree, whatever, but it's just a nominal event, nominal holiday. But it was his birthday, and I was in school, and this white kid comes to me and said, "Hey, how come you're here? It's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. You're supposed to be at home. And I felt very uncomfortable. Um, I don't think I was even aware of what day it was. I just knew I had school and I went to school. But I remember how I felt that he made me feel embarrassed and ashamed. And I felt like I didn't have the social tools. Why is he coming to me? Again, I wasn't friends with this white kid. He was a male. I think he was just a little older, but I wasn't like friendly or chatty with this person. He was just another classmate. It was an integrated school. You have many nationalities in that school, in that classroom. It was the first time I was in a school that was very, very, very racially, ethnically diverse. You had New European immigrants, you had West Indian immigrants, you had American white and blacks, you had Asian, you had Hispanics, you had Jews, you had everything. And it wasn't, an issue, really, just go to school and, and that was it. So I didn't understand why he approached me for when I really didn't know him that well. And what is it, his business of whether he feels I should be at home or not. I resent that he wasn't minding his own business about his own affairs. And I felt like he was, even though I didn't fully understand about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I didn't understand what was the significance of whether I had to stay at home or not. It wasn't a federal holiday at that time. And companies could, you know, be open or not open, you know, but now I think it's a federal holiday. But either still, you have someone, and he didn't mean it. The undertone of his voice, he didn't mean it in a good way. And I gather that maybe in his community, whatever what community that was it was a day for that you don't get to see black people, which is something that they want. They don't want to see your face. But still, it's putting I felt there was an animosity behind his statement. And again, I never had a real issue with this kid. It might have been one time, I expressed myself in classroom, and he thought, "Oh, you're stupid," or something. But, it was just silly kid stuff, whatever. Uh, but yeah, I had nothing against this kid at all. But so, why did he feel that he needed to say that to me? Why? And this is why his statement is really getting behind the true hatred that some people have against black people. That he doesn't want to outright call you the N-word. Again, his parents came from Europe. I think he was a new European arrival. Yeah. And, but either still, that it's the hatred behind it. And the expectancy was that he shouldn't be seeing any black people, and it confused him. And there were other people, other blacks in school, you know. Um, but I feel his comment was designed to make me uncomfortable. That he was uncomfortable that my physical presence was there. And I think that's where the real argument to make his birthday, King's birthday, a national holiday, a federal holiday, or a federally observed holiday. It's a shame that such stigma, I felt stigmatized. and to put stigma on someone who's never hurt you. But fast forward a little bit. Now, I was still in the same grade, and I don't remember how many, what the time frame was, but one day in the seventh grade, the same grade, it was after school hours. I'm waiting for the bus to take me home. And on my corner, the bus that I was on is primarily a black bus, a bus where that goes to black neighborhoods to drop people home. And then across the street, on the same side of the street, was a bus that's primarily white, where a lot of the white kids lived. And one day while I was waiting for the bus, there was a girl. I think there was like we had to go down a hill before we got to the bus stop. There was some commotion, some rustling in the air, and there was a girl that said, "Oh, so and so, these kids are beating up people, something." And I remember getting to the bus stop, and then a girl comes up to a white person that was standing near me at the time, or they were walking past, and a black girl says to the white, "Hey, you better get your butt home," something like, "You better get home because so and so, these people are going to beat you up." But it was how she said it, and she said it not to warn the white person because they were concerned for their well-being, but that it was like, "Yeah, you better, Whitey, you better get home." And I didn't like that. I don't like, if you're going to warn someone, but I guess I feel that you don't wish harm on people, regardless of their race, because when you wish harm on people, it'll befall on you. But why I mentioned this story now? Maybe 5 minutes after the girl said that, again on the other corner on the same side of the street as me, all of a sudden there was some commotion, and you see masses of these young guys. They were all wearing the same clothing. They were all wearing black. They had this same haircut and same attire, and they were teenagers. They could have been maybe a little younger than me even, racing down the hill, running across the street. And then I saw the one. It was a pack, maybe about 15, 20 kids, all males, young males. And I remember seeing one of, again, I didn't know any of these kids. And one of them lifted up his fist up in the air to punch the nearest person who he got to when he got across the street. But he kind of hesitated. He turns his head behind him to see if his buddies were behind him before he made the first punch. And then after that, they split. Boom. Instantaneous. And I think at that point, the police came immediately. And they dispersed that fast. And I remember that I was afraid. And it was the same bus stop. And I think my girlfriend at the time was waiting for that bus. And but they didn't touch any of the girls. I think there was two girls, and then I think two guys. And one of them, I believe it was that same guy that said to me about the holiday, that why am I there, that I should be at home. Well, isn't that something? That how karma works. That here, this kid in his heart does not want me to be there in his presence because I'm supposed to be at home for this so-called black holiday. And then fast forward, a black girl says something to a white person. It wasn't the same fellow, the same person that the black girl talked to, but in essence, it was the same type of conversation, that that white person's presence to that black female was an irritant and that they better be home. So you see how karma works, how people could wish harm, and on the surface it might seem innocent, but the essence of the conversation is, I don't like you and I don't want you around. So I'm not about that. And I wish that people got along, that I don't want to be uncomfortable in my skin. And you know, kids, when you're that young, 12 years old, 11 years old, 13 years old, you only know what your household teaches you and television. And again, if it's television, the people in charge of that house have control over what you see. So, and then again, your society, your neighbors and stuff like that. That we're teaching society, we're teaching our children, we're teaching people to be mean. To that if someone is perceived to be beneath you, to treat them a certain way. Or even if they're perceived to be better than you, then that it's okay to be jealous against other people. So I guess with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what he sees all these things going on in America. He sees people calling people, oh, you're a racist, hey, you're a racist. And people in King's Day, they knew what racism was all about. But the people today, they use that label like it's an accessory of harm, an accessory to sound popular or hip, not because they really believe it. It's a vocabulary word that is losing its power, and you don't realize it. See, people are being taught to play wolf. That you're pointing at other people, and it's not really going on, like some people call fake news. But when it really happens, no one's going to believe you. A good point is what happened about 2 days ago. There was a missile scare to the state of Hawaii, that they got an alarm, what do you call it, an alert that a missile was shot and aiming for their island. I was told it takes 10 minutes for a rocket to reach from A to Z. And if it was coming from a particular country, it'll take 10 minutes. Honey, in 10 minutes, you don't have time to escape. And if it's a missile, and if it's a nuclear missile, honey, there's really no place to hide. The fallout and the vibrations of the shock of it all, it'll just destroy everything in its path. And it took about a half an hour to dispense the information that it was a false alarm. You know, people could have died in that, get a heart attack because of the fear. See, we have to be careful what we tell people. And I believe that what happened in Hawaii with the false alarm was not I don't believe it was a false alarm. For a button to be pressed, that there is a missile aiming at you, I'm sure it's not just one button. You have to have all these procedures. Like I was in the military, you have to have a chain, of people telling you, one person to another person to dispense information, and more than one button got to be pressed to press an alarm that a missile is coming after you. I don't know what I would have done if it was here. And again, I used to live in Hawaii. So you have people who are trying to manipulate. And I believe what happened with Hawaii's false alarm, missile alarm, was that it was to test to see what the people would do there, and then make an assessment and to do a particular thing. See, they're gathering information. They're gathering information on you, people. People in the United States, they are monitoring you. They're monitoring what you say, and people are believing in these false news and crying wolf. And that thing, it is what it is. And so the next time there is a real alert, what will people do? They'll probably just go, oh, false alarm probably, and then it happens. You know, we're being conditioned to think certain ways, such as racism. See that when you take a word that had a lot of power in the 1950s and 60s, and then it gets regurgitated in 2018, and now it's meaningless, absolutely meaningless, and we fall for it. We fall for it, and that people are trying to scare one another and trying to create a race war. Don't fall for the hype. Don't fall for it, people. Regardless of what your race or religion, people's buttons are being pressed. Literally, people's buttons are being pressed to make you react, to make you so fearful so that they can control you. And they're just trying to do anything what it takes because I feel they want to create a police state, a reason to go out with your military tanks and to spy on one another, to point people out, or they did this or they said that. They're making you like into a stool pigeon. And once you finish being the stool pigeon, they'll get you too. Don't fall for it. Black people out there, any race of people out there who are listening to this broadcast, that you have to be careful about everything now, to stay calm and to realize what the intent of things. So they go into all different parts of the world trying to start these little wars, such as what happened in South Africa, and they're showing this guy uh, uh, damaging a store. Remember, that store has insurance, so whether you throw the stuff down and destroy it, their insurance will pay for it all. But it won't stop the people who authorize that hoodie to be marketed, and it was marketed to somebody. Why would you have in South Africa something like that? Come on now. South Africa, I feel your pain, but my concern with what happened with this specific incident is you are of the majority. And when you're the majority, shouldn't you be able to have the social control what's released to the public, or the train of thought that you want people to believe and adhere to? And when you get upset because a monkey, come on. There are things more important than whether someone's calling someone a monkey. Remember that whether someone looks like a primate or not, one thing for those in South Africa who are black, that's your land. And in fact, that we are indigenous to the planet. And if that doesn't get you excited, when that, see, you're taking someone's calling you, implying that you are a monkey, knowing that all those, the counterpart is doing wickedness. They're creating things to destroy the planet, creating GMOs that alter your DNA and cause you cancers. They put chemtrails on in the sky. They, etc. They give you medicine that causes death. These other peoples, they are not people of real power, because they are about death. But I say choose life. Choose life. Whether someone calls you a name like that, come on now. Now, if someone raped your child or commit murder, that's something to get really excited about. Choose your fights, as I said in my video yesterday. Choose your fights carefully and learn about the intent behind what they do to you. It's telling me and the world at large that you have an Achilles heel. An Achilles heel is your vulnerable spot. And it's teaching white people, hey, you know how to get a black person angry? You just call them a monkey. Or you call them the N-word, and they love it. They love to see how we respond. And as I told you in the video I did yesterday, that a young white woman years ago, over 30 years ago, was trying to pull my chain, as the expression goes, which means to harass me. Even though I was called to that scene to help her out, because it was some type of emergency and they had to get this project out. And so I was hired just for that evening. It was at a temp assignment, and they called me at 11 p.m. to get there by 12 midnight to help this company out. And so rather than being grateful that I arrived, I saw hatred in her eyes immediately when I stepped into the room. And she was trying to provoke my anger. And then what she did was, towards when it was time for me to leave, she decides she wants to go on the phone. And she has to sign my timesheet. And she said, well, I'm on the phone right now. So I waited till she finished. And then when she finished, she saw the time. Says, I'm not going to sign this card. It says such and such time. I said, yeah, that's what time it is now. And you should sign it in, the time that I'm leaving. And since you're on the phone, it's still my time. So she refused. And I knew why she did it. I get to I call up the agency, and I started to cry. And I just, again, as I mentioned in the video yesterday, I just told the facts. I just said she did this and then she did that. And I said, I don't understand why she did what she did. And she refuses to sign. Well, that agency paid me for my time. I did not say, oh, well, she's racist, but I cried because I was emotional. I was upset. And the agency hears how upset I am. And here I did the agency a favor and went there for a graveyard shift to help the client out. So with you, so I mentioned that is, again, be careful how, know what you're saying and what outcome you want. Is the outcome you want just chaos and broken buildings and fire? No. Your aim is to, in my case, was to get paid. And your aim is you don't want that type of material on your children, and I don't blame you. But again, also, regarding what people call you, and our Achilles heel, You know, see, they're jealous of your presence, just like the white woman was jealous of my presence. They're jealous of you because you are indigenous. You're indigenous to the planet, like I am. Whether you're mixed race or pure-blooded African, to a white person, they couldn't care what I'm mixed with, so long as that I have black blood, and they may not, many of them may not like me for that. But that's okay. I like being indigenous. I like to be reminded that I am of the earth. See, you are connected to the earth. You're connected to the soil, the plants, and the sun, all that. You are connected to it. And these people who had violated your trust in them to have a nice product for your child, see, they're not connected to you. They're not connected to the land. They're connected to their pockets. And that's that's the real distinction between many blacks in comparison to whites. Whites, or I should say Europeans, Western Europeans in particular, are connected to money. And everything they do, well, I should say many of them, are what they do is based on money, how to extract more money. While the indigenous people on the planet, they're interested in life, uh, interacting with their neighbors. They're interested in the arts and music. They're interested in being part of the land. See, that's a blessing. And I'm wondering with this, what about these space programs? What I mentioned about the war in heaven in chapter 12 in the book of Revelation, about the sons of God and the daughters of men. That maybe some of these people are offspring of those people, and so they're not connected to this land, not to the same extent as you are. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of that. Yes, you may be connected to that monkey or that primate. This is our home. If you're tied to that land, you're going to look like that land. They don't. But I'm proud that I resemble something on this planet that's beautiful, that's kind. You don't see primates, monkeys, or gorillas. You don't see them making nuclear bombs or creating GMO foods. It's insanity. The people who control this planet are insane. Don't try to even emulate many of them. Don't even try it. Have some real inner strength. Not to be upset about a monkey. I thank you that I look like a monkey, a little yellow monkey, a little brown monkey. Thank God I look like that. They're beautiful animals. Beautiful. Every animal on this planet has a quality about them, has a characteristics about them that's unique and special. But the characteristics of people who design that hoodie shirt, it shows where their mind is at. They lack humanity. They lack common sense. So isn't South Africa, isn't that a nice jewel of a country? It has spectacular mountains. Enjoy your land. It's your land. So when you walk in the street in South Africa or any native on this planet, you walk with dignity and strength because it's your land. But see, as indigenous people, we don't mind sharing. We are sharing and giving people. And I think that's a very good quality. But when you go to their land, oftentimes they don't want you around. Oftentimes you move in, even when you have money to move into their neighborhoods, they move out and they have their kids in a different school system. So it does hurt. But you just encourage yourself. You look at yourself in the mirror. What quality you have, you bring out the best in that quality. You exercise, you bathe, you groom yourself, you put nice body lotion on you so you look your best and smell your best. Because you're a connected, indigenous being. You are a spiritual being. And many people see us and are jealous of us. So this day, this Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, wherever we're indigenous people are on this planet, you take care of yourself and you teach your children about their history accurately if you can. Teach them to love themselves. Teach them to enjoy their natural body. And to, go on in life and educate yourself. Educate. Learn as much as you can. Tell your children that you love them. Start doing more things outdoors. Yeah. Even myself, I tell that. I need to tell that to myself too. To go outdoors and enjoy nature. That's where we belong. We belong out in nature, being friends with one another. Here, these nations that create weapons of mass destruction, they stay indoors because they're about evil. Don't believe all the hype. Don't distort meanings of words. Be truthful when you speak. That's important. So, with that last thought, I wish you a very good day and you walk in peace and integrity. Enjoy. Bye-bye.